Today is new pen day. Today we have the Pilot Custom Heritage 92. And I actually honestly haven't opened this box yet, so I figured we could do that together. We could look at this pen. I'll give you my thoughts. We will ink it up, write with it, and go from there. So first off, I haven't experienced the Pilot 92 before. I've known about this pen for a long time, and I've always thought that this pen was an underappreciated version of the Pilot Custom 74, which as you may know, this is my favorite pen. This is the pen I use most in my entire collection. The 92 is one that I feel just doesn't really get a lot of love in the community. There's a few reasons for that I'll talk through, but let me show you this pen first. So I got this pen, a friend of mine actually helped me buy this pen from Asia, from Hong Kong, and brought this over when he was visiting the US recently. I haven't decided whether I'm going to keep this pen. Another friend of mine mentioned he'll take it off my hands if I decide not to keep it. So I guess you and I can decide together here whether this is a keeper or not. But this pen is the piston filler version of the Pilot Custom 74. Now, let me just state right off the bat, I don't think this pen makes a lot of sense to purchase from US retailers, and I think the market has spoken on that. If you look at US resellers, these pens are not really in stock, or if they are in stock, there aren't very many nib options, not very many colors, and that's because the US market price for this pen is $220, which it's just too much money for this pen. However, if you look at the sticker here, these Japanese pens usually have the suggested retail price. It's 15,000 Japanese yen, which these days is about 120, 130 US dollars. Much better. And the market price for these is even lower than that. So this pen my friend picked up for me for about 100 USD. I did a quick Amazon search. I was actually kind of surprised to see the price online, Amazon, eBay, these types of retailers, it's actually pretty close to that. So at $220, I don't think this pen makes a lot of sense. At 120, 130, or even less than that, I think it makes a lot of sense. So here with the box, you have the literature. Someone asked me about this before. They said they hadn't seen this. This is the card that comes with Pilot pens in Asia. This is basically for the authorized retailer to put their stamp. This pen, I don't know where my friend bought this, but it doesn't have the stamp, but it has the card, which is interesting. And this is the use and care guide, pretty standard for Pilot pens. Okay, so let's take a look at this pen. So my first impressions, I actually don't like the way this feels as much as the Custom 74. So the flattened edges, it actually feels pretty sharp up here. So you can see, I'm not sure if the camera can pick that up, but you can see how they've done the injection molding up here. They've left the sort of an indentation across the top. It actually feels pretty sharp to the hand. I mean, not like it's gonna cut you, but it feels slightly unrefined. Same thing with the piston knob in the back. It doesn't feel as smooth as the Custom 74 does. But all in all, this is essentially the same pen, with one being cartridge converter and the other being a piston filler. In the US, the retail price of the 74 is lower. In Japan, if you look at the suggested retail, the 74 is a little bit less expensive, but it's not anywhere near the price difference in the US. So basically, if you're buying this pen in Asia, there's really not a lot between them. So you're basically picking the pen that you like rather than, the 92 does not sell for a substantial premium over the 74 in Asia. The other thing that I find is really interesting, and I think I mentioned this once before when I talked about buying my Pilot Custom 74, this blue is the color that I wanted. However, for some reason, on the 92, this blue is available globally. On the 74, this blue is a US exclusive. So if you want this blue in the 74, you have to pay the US retail price, or the US street price, which is around $160, versus if you wanted a clear or gray or any of these other custom 74 colors, it's much less expensive if you buy them from Asia. But the 92, the blue is a globally available color. No idea why that is. So really quickly, I wanted to take a look at the other pen that I have from Pilot that is this similar shape. So this is the Pilot 912. So it is the bigger version of the Pilot 91, which is the pen that this is based off of. So the 91 is the plastic cartridge converter version. The 92 is the piston filler, and the 912 is the bigger version of the 91. So I'm sure that's not confusing at all. And then this next to another Japanese flat end pen. This is the Sailor Pro Gear. So you can just get a quick reference to size. The Pro Gear is much thicker, but the 92 is longer. So I think that's all there is to it in terms of an overview. This has the Pilot number 5 14 karat gold nib, same as the 74. And I thought that since I was getting the pen from Asia, I might as well get a nib that's not available here in the US. So I picked a Pilot fine medium. So I actually don't have any other Pilot fine medium nibs in this size, so the number 5 size, or number 10, number 15. I do have a custom Iroshi in a fine medium, but that's a really big or a premium nib. So I'm really curious to see what the fine medium is like in a smaller nib. Two quick things before I ink this pen. The first is Pilot pens, when they come out of the box, at least these gold nib pens, I find it really interesting that the nib is always oriented straight up relative to the cap. At first I thought this was a fluke or just by chance, but I've seen enough of this to know that this is intentional, which I think is really cool, that they took the time to align. It's just a friction fit nib, but they took the time to align the nib so that it is either facing straight up, or these pens have 2 sets of threads. So if you go and turn on the opposite thread, then the nib will be straight down. I think that's really interesting, especially for these pens that have a transparent cap. It's just a nice detail that I appreciate. Sailor doesn't do it, Platinum doesn't do it. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing is, one of the big differences between the 92 and the Custom 74 is the cap, or sorry, the clip. The 92 has a much simpler sword-shaped clip versus the 74, which has the Pilot ball clip. This may be a small difference to some people. To me, I really like the ball clip on the 74, and it's just another reason where I haven't even used this pen yet, but I can tell you already that I prefer the 74 in terms of the design. All right, so with that out of the way, let's ink this thing. So this is my handy dandy ink towel. You can see it's seen a bit of use over the years. I'll ink this with Pilot Kon Peki. I think this is a nice match to the blue in the Pilot 92. I know a lot of people really, I haven't used this ink in a while. I know a lot of people really like Kon Peki, It's not my favorite ink. I tend to like a darker blue. Like a lot of people know my favorite ink is Pilot Blue Black, but I thought this is a nice match to this pen. So you'll excuse me, I'm trying to ink this with the tripod in the way here, so hopefully I don't make a mess. Oh, I don't think I had it all the way in the ink. All right, first time inking this pen. That's a good enough fill for now. I probably didn't get the entire nib in the ink there, so probably didn't get as much of a fill as I could have, but this is fine for our purposes. So swipe that down, and let's take a look at how this thing writes. I'm very curious about this fine medium nib, as I said earlier. So pretty standard Pilot number 5 nib, but in a fine medium, which is not that common here in the US. One other quick thing, sorry. This piston knob, I thought it was actually just the top. So in videos I've seen of this pen before, I always thought, oh, that must be kind of difficult to turn because the piston knob is so small. It's actually this entire section. So everything above this chrome ring here is the knob. So it's actually fairly easy to use. All right, let's get my handy dandy endless recorder notebook here. And let's see, whoops. Let's see what this pen is like to use. So this is, see if I can see the camera. So this is the Pilot Custom Heritage. So the Heritage just means that it's the flat top version of the pens. This is the 92. This is Pilot Kon Peki. And this is the 14 karat number 5 fine medium nib. So first impressions, this feels very similar to the Pilot 74. So these number 5 nibs from Pilot are very smooth. They don't really have any of that pencil-like feedback that you get from Sailor or from Platinum. They also have a bit of softness to them. Not softness in terms of like a flex nib where it gives you line variation, just softness in terms of the feel when you write. It feels a lot smoother from a feedback perspective compared to even like a Pilot steel nib. So very, very pleasant. So here's a quick look at how the fine medium is in terms of the width. It doesn't feel, so surprisingly, this doesn't feel as sharp or as it giving me as much feedback as I expected. I thought the fine medium was going to be a little bit more fine than this. So as a comparison, this is a number 5 medium, and this is the custom 74. So if I do this side by side, you can see that's really not as much of a difference as I expected. So that's really interesting. These two pens feel extremely similar. So I really think if you're looking for one of these and you're okay with buying the pen from Asia, basically, to get it for half the price, you'll really choosing between the 92 and the 74 is just a preference between the shape in terms of whether you like that cigar shape or this flat-ended shape, and whether you like the cartridge converter versus the piston. Personally, I really like the 74 because I like the fact that a cartridge converter is just easier to take care of, and I like that cigar shape over this. However, this is a great pen. For $220, it doesn't make a lot of sense in my view in terms of a value proposition, but in the low 100s, you're getting a lot of pen for the money. So I'm really impressed. So the big question is, am I going to keep it? So I'll use this for a few days to have a final answer, but first impressions, no. So first impressions, this feels a lot like the Custom 74, and it's just not something that adds a whole lot to my collection. I don't really see a situation where I would really grab this pen instead of the 74. I mean, if this nib was a lot finer, then I could see where there's situations where I would want to use a finer nib where the 74 wouldn't really do the trick. But there's not really a lot in it. This fine medium and this medium, it is finer, but not by enough to make any significant difference. The writing experience is very similar. The feel of the pen, the weight is very similar. The look is very similar. This blue is nice, but I think my friend who wants to have this pen instead of me is going to get it. But anyway, I hope that was fun. This pen will certainly never be this clean ever again. This was fun to unbox this with you and ink this up for the first time. I hope that was fun for you as well, and thank you so much for watching.